Welcome to Understanding the Bible with Pastor Stephen, episode 46, Dinosaurs in the Bible, part 4. Well, this is the conclusion, and it's been a lot of fun going through the science and actually investigating this stuff, so I wanted to show you what the proof is for Noah's Ark and dinosaurs. Now, last time we had covered in episode 3 the proof of dinosaurs and humans living together, dinosaurs in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, Job, Psalms, cave dwellings, not from prehistoric man-apes, but actual normal humans. So from the Bible, Lot, King David, Obadiah, Jephthah, and of course modern times like Jesse James' outlaw gang, etc. Humans have lived in caves ever since civilization began. So we have ancient cave drawings and sculptures and such with dinosaurs and carvings and things like that that prove human beings were aware of those great beasts. And then, of course, we had the fossil footprints of humans and dinosaurs together. And last time I shared the ones in Texas, Tanzania, New Mexico, Utah, Turkmenia. And then I ended with the geologist Albert G. Ingalls, who wrote in Scientific American, again, not a Christian, but this is just a regular scientist. He said, quote, "If man or even his ape ancestors existed as far back as the Carboniferous period in any shape, then the whole science of geology is so completely wrong that all the geologists will resign their jobs and take up truck driving. Hence, for the present at least, science rejects the attractive explanation that man made these mysterious prints in the mud." End quote. So they have proof of dinosaurs and humans together with human footprints, and yet science rejects that explanation, because it would prove that the whole of science and geology is absolutely wrong about evolution and everything. So the conclusion was there's plenty of evidence, but scientists choose to ignore, deny, or flat out lie about it. The fossil proof is irrefutable, but most people simply aren't aware of it because they're deliberately hiding it or ignoring it. Dinosaurs lived with and were hunted by humans. So today we're going to talk about Noah's Ark. And really the questions that I've had from people is, how could you believe that stuff? That dinosaurs were on Noah's Ark, they're too big, right? So let's touch on the details real quick. It was basically in the Bible a worldwide flood in Genesis 6 through 9. Noah and his family and 2 of every animal were saved on the boat. That's generally what people understand from it, okay? Let's read Genesis 6, starting in verse 9. "These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Room shalt thou make in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. Now, a cubit, depends on who you talk to, is about 18 inches, okay? The breadth of it, 50 cubits, and the height of it, 30 cubits. And a window shalt thou make to the ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I, even I, do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. And of every living thing of all flesh, 2 of every sort shalt thou bring into the ark to keep them alive with thee. They shall be male and female. Of fowls after their kind, and of cattle after their kind, of every creeping thing of the earth after his kind. 2 of every sort shall come unto thee to keep them alive. And take thou unto thee of all food that is eaten, and thou shalt gather it to thee, and it shall be for food for thee and for them. Thus did Noah." We'll get into the details of that because this is like the prelude telling you what is about to happen. In chapter 7 and 8, you learn more in chapter 9. So when did all this happen? Well, we already covered that in episode 43, if you want to go back and listen to it. Depending on historical records from the ancient civilizations, we can date the flood to be about 2300 to 3800 BC. So how long were they on the ark? Well, according to the Bible, it comes to a total of 377 days. So we get that from several different places, starting in Genesis 7, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. They were in the ark for 7 days before it started raining. Then it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. And then in chapter 7, verse 21, it says, And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, both of fowl and of cattle and of beast, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, and every man, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land, died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the ground, both man and cattle, and the creeping things, and the fowl of the heaven, and they were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. And the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. So there you have more days. And then in chapter 8, verse 4, it says, And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountain of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, and so on. And so it gives you these time periods, right? And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark. And it gives you the months. And then finally in chapter 8, verse 15, God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons' wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Add up all those dates, and that's how we get 377. So who was on it specifically? 8 humans. Okay, we had Noah, his wife, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. Now, the animals, you have to read the whole story to get this, but it was actually more than just 2 of every kind. Genesis 7, verse 2 says, Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. So the clean ones were the ones they could eat, which makes sense if they're on the ark for over a year, right? Of fowls also of the air by 7s, the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. There went in 2 and 2 unto Noah in the ark, the male and the female, as God had commanded Noah. That's where you get the concept of 2 by 2. There was only 2 of every kind. Multiple times the story mentions 2 by 2, male and female. And so that's where the misconception gets, even though the Bible clearly states there were 7 of the clean animals. Now, obviously not the water animals. He clearly said those that fly and those that are on dry land. People ask, well, what about the freshwater versus saltwater animals? Well, look, if God could make the sky fall and the earth open up, cause mountains to rise, islands to form, move the tectonic plates and separate land masses into continents, and protect all the land animals by bringing them onto the ark for Noah, for a single person to survive, you don't think he could separate the fresh and salt water, like little aquariums in the ocean, to keep certain animals alive, or even by miracles, just allow those animals to live in the same water for a year? Like, God can do whatever he wants, okay? So you can speculate however you want about freshwater and saltwater creatures. I don't have the answer to it, but I know God did it. Now, the flood itself, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. That's in Genesis 7:11. It says, In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. That's waters from above. Now, there's speculation about whether the planet Earth had an ice shield or a water canopy, or maybe it was just torrential downpour. We don't know. But clearly water came down from out of the sky, okay? And then waters from below. So you think about the physics of the earth, the tectonic plate movements, the earthquakes, hidden springs of water like Old Faithful and things like that. If everything just started spouting up water through the earth and earthquakes and such were happening, we're talking such a great upheaval that in itself would create an environment that would kill animals and people, right? The idea that the whole earth is flooded, well, obviously, when it recedes, there's going to be islands because of this movement of the upheavals of the water from inside the earth and such. You're going to have mountains and islands formed and destroyed with the whole earth being covered by water. Go back to Genesis when God separated the waters and caused dry land to appear. You look at Genesis 1:7, and God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So we're talking continents being formed, oceans, lakes, rivers, all laid down probably in new locations as the waters receded, and the upheaval and the bottoms of the oceans were formed. And like, I don't know what all happened. Obviously nobody does because we weren't there. But that type of flooding on the earth from waters underneath the land and waters above the land in the heavens coming down would clearly require some massive upheaval and changes in the geology and demographics of the earth. So you can look at the science of the Grand Canyon, Mount St. Helens exploding, the fossil formations, standing tree forests in Nova Scotia and the cliffs of Joggins, where the tree trunks are through multiple layers of rock that are fossilized. And these were even studied by Lyell and Dawson. Plenty of evidence for a worldwide cataclysmic event, not millions of years of rock layers being laid down. But this is about Noah's Ark. I'm not talking about the age of the earth here. So let's go back to the logistics of Noah's Ark. What kind of animals did he have on there? Well, there's a science to this, actually. It's called the taxonomy of the animals. If you look at Genesis 7, verse 14, and then Genesis 8, verse 18, it says, "They and every beast after his kind, and all the cattle after their kind, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and every fowl after his kind, every bird of every sort. And Noah went forth, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him." And then 8:19 says, "Every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, and whatsoever creepeth upon the earth after their kinds, went forth out of the ark." So the Bible clearly specifies kinds and sorts that went into the ark and the kinds that came out of the ark. So there's two different words for that. In chapter 7, it's the word min, the Hebrew word meaning to portion out or sort a kind of something or a group of something. In chapter 8, it's the word mishpachah, and I probably said that wrong. I don't speak Hebrew. And that means a family or a circle of relatives, a class or a sort of thing. And by extension, that word is used to explain tribes of people. So the science of this, when you look at the taxonomy of animals, is we start with what kingdom of animal is it, the phylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, and then the species. Well, we have over 8 million species of animals documented today, and we're talking extinct ones as well. There's no way he could have had 8 million animals on board. There's no way he could have had every species. Well, the Bible doesn't say species. It says kind or class. So let's take the wolf, for example. The kingdom is the animal kingdom. The class is a mammal. The order is a carnivore. The family is Canidae, I believe that's how you say that, is dog-like carnivores like wolves, jackals, foxes, coyotes, domesticated dogs, etc. The genus is Canis, and the species is Lupus. Recent studies estimate that the total number of living and extinct kinds of land animals and flying creatures to be about 1,500 kinds. We're talking about families of animals, not species. So you think about that, potentially, Noah only needed about 6,000 different animals on board to get every kind that we currently see today, plus the extinct ones that we know about. Biblically, several different dinosaurs had to be on board to fulfill that kinds of animals, two of every kind of unclean animal, right? So we're talking land and bird, every kind of dinosaur. Well, there's only a handful of different kinds of dinosaurs. So you think of the size of the animals. Well, nowhere does the Bible say that they had to be full grown and huge. You could have easily had babies. You know, maybe the dinosaurs lived to be 60 years old or 100 years old or 500 years old. I don't know. Like, I'm thinking of like the tortoises and sea turtles and such. What if they were just babies and a year later they were only 4 feet big as opposed to these gigantic 150 foot tall dinosaurs? I don't know. But that's a perfectly logical scientific explanation. Maybe the parent dinosaurs brought the eggs and gave them and they hatched on the ark. I don't know. But it wouldn't take much space if you only need 1,500 different kinds of animals. So what's the aftermath of all this? Well, after the ark, of course, we have the Grand Canyon. We have where the water receded, the terrible amount of mud for that much water to be. It was 15 cubits high above the tallest mountain. of water. So there was tons of disaster on the land afterwards. And you think of the mud flows and things that carve mountains now, the mud slides and such. That kind of thing had to have happened all over the place. So it was a very limited area on the mountain when they first got off the ark. They did an initial sacrifice to God. And of course, God gave them the covenant of the rainbow, which we still see to this day. Now, the need for food as mankind began to spread on the earth, of course, would cause problems in the animal population when you're starting over with 2 of an unclean kind. If a human accidentally killed one of those, well, that animal is extinct, right? Also, don't forget, obviously, with the geology being different, the atmosphere was different. There's all kinds of things that could have changed the lifespan of the animals and their ability to survive. I don't know if, dinosaurs need a certain type of dense atmosphere that may have changed in the new world. Basically, that's what it was. It was a new world, and barometric pressure and everything would have drastically changed, which could have caused problems for those great gigantic beasts and their lungs to be able to breathe. So it's quite possible that animals became extinct simply because of the new earth. Look at the age of human beings. Noah died at 950. His son Shem died at 600 years old. Abraham died at 175 years old. King David died at 70 years or 71 years old. The lifespan of mankind was clearly cut short after that. Genesis 6:3, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. And of course, today it's similar, although lots of people do live to be 100, but certainly not very much older than 120, like God said in Genesis. After Noah's Ark, how did all these kinds become the millions of species that we now see today? Well, you have to understand there's regional adaptations, microevolution versus macroevolution. Macroevolution is the idea that different kinds of animals can gradually evolve into something completely different, like a lizard into a bird, or a bird into an elephant, or a fish into a bear, or whatever. Ridiculous, no evidence for that sort of thing. But microevolution is a way of explaining the change using natural selection that you typically hear about, where a species develops something that does not change their species. It does not change what they are in any way. For instance, human beings that are born in high altitudes in the mountains typically have greater lung capacities. If they go down into lower altitudes and conceive children and give birth to children in those lower altitudes where there's more oxygen, their lung capacities revert back to the normal human lung capacity. So God has designed animals, plants, and human beings to be able to adapt without changing whether or not you're a specific species of animal or a plant or a human. You don't change what you are. You don't change your kind. But we can sunburn, right? We can suntan. Our hair gets bleached being out in the sun. Our hair changes color. So our environment does impact us and does impact animals, but it doesn't change what kind you are. That's just basic science of dominant versus recessive genes. And think of the nature of humans and animals to stick to the kinds that look like them, the species or the race that looks like them. So if you start drawing from the same gene pool consistently, generation after generation after generation, then you develop new dominant traits in your offspring. And that goes down to the science of DNA. Human beings' DNA contains all the traits necessary for every type of human. If you're white, black, yellow, red, doesn't matter. You have the genes, the recessive genes for every other race. The width of your nose, the slant of your eyes, the color of your hair, all of that is in your DNA. It just didn't come out in you because it's recessive. So that's just science. That's understood. It's the same for animals. So think about dogs. What if on the ark, Noah only took one kind of dog? And over the generations, as they spread over the earth, they became the different types of dogs, wolves, coyotes, Australian dingoes, whatever. Because conceiving from a very limited group of animals in one specific region would begin to develop traits for that region that animal would always have in its offspring. Maybe only one pair of cats was on board the ark. And when it came off and had kids and they went to different parts of the world, you got mountain lions and tigers, and eventually down to our domesticated cats, which the Chinese bred to be smaller and smaller and to do different tasks and look different ways. Sorry, that's the Chinese, I believe, are credited with domesticating the dog and the different breeds. But the point stands. How many generations do you suppose it would take for a particular animal to develop something special for that region, like, say, the zebras in Africa, or horses, or ponies, or, whatever? A couple hundred generations? It wouldn't take long before they all started looking alike. And that's science. We know that. We've been able to do that with different types of rats and with flies and with all kinds of different science experiments have been done where you can rapidly manipulate the generations with conceiving with a limited gene pool, and you develop different traits on purpose. Well, that would happen with any limited gene pool in a particular region. That's my point. Now, what about the science of history? What do we know about that with Noah's Ark? So this is pretty fascinating too. The Bible timeline is from creation to Noah was about 1,600 years. It's clearly delineated in the genealogies. Now, from Noah to 0 AD was about 2,300 to 3,800 years of human history that we can actually verify that. How? Well, every culture has a flood myth. So in China, according to mythological and historical sources, the flood is traditionally dated to 2,300 BC during the reign of Emperor Yao. Oh, that mysteriously fits with the Bible, doesn't it? Noah's flood, 2,300 BC. The Aztecs have a myth of Titlaquan, where he was a god that warned the man named Note and his wife Nina of a coming flood. They hollowed out a cypress tree and the god sealed them inside. The earth was flooded. Now the people weren't killed. Instead, they were all turned into fish. So essentially killed. But there's a flood myth in the Aztec culture. In the Greek culture, Zeus was displeased with the human population. So he told the son of Prometheus to construct an ark for him and his wife Pura. And after 9 days of flooding, the world was destroyed and the ark rested on top of a mountain. The Hindu had a legend of Manu, the first man visited by the fish lord Vishnu. This fish god told Manu that the world would be destroyed in a great flood. So Manu built a boat and tied it to the horn of the fish, and the fish guided his boat through the floods to the top of a mountain where he survived and repopulated the earth. In Hawaii, there's the same type of legend. After the death of the first man, the world became a wicked, terrible place. Only one good man was left. His name was Nu'u. He made a great canoe with a house on it and filled it with animals. The water came up all over the earth and killed all the people. Only Nu'u and his family were saved. So ICR puts it this way, the Institute for Creation Research. And I'm just going to read this to you. It's a really good quote. One of the strongest evidences for the global flood, which annihilated all people on earth except for Noah and his family, has been the presence of flood legends in the folklore of people groups from around the world. The stories are all so similar. Local geography and cultural aspects may be present, but they all tell the same story. And this author says at ICR says that over the years, I have collected more than 200 of these stories, originally reported by various missionaries, anthropologists, and ethnologists. While the differences are not always trivial, the common essence of the stories is this: a favored family, forewarned by a god, a flood comes due to the wickedness of mankind. It's a global flood. They only survived due to some type of boat. Animals were saved, and the survivors landed on a mountain. Putting them all together, the story would read like this. Once there was a worldwide flood sent by God to judge the wickedness of man, but there was one righteous family which was forewarned of the flood. They built a boat on which they survived the flood along with the animals. As the flood ended, their boat landed on a high mountain from which they descended and repopulated the whole earth. That's Noah's flood right there. The most similar accounts are typically from Middle Eastern cultures, but surprisingly similar legends are found in South America, the Pacific Islands, and elsewhere. None of these stories give as much detail as the Bible, and each of the stories is meaningful to their own culture. So anthropologists will tell you that a myth is often the faded memory of a real event. Details may have been added, lost, or obscured in the telling and retelling, but the kernel of truth remains. And again, anthropologists will tell you when two separate cultures have the same myth in their folklore, their ancestors must have experienced the same event, or they both descended from a common ancestor which experienced that event and told their kids. The only credible way to understand the widespread flood legends is to recognize that all people living today, even those separated geographically, linguistically, and culturally, have descended from the few real people who survived a real global flood on a real boat, which eventually landed on a real mountain. Their descendants now fill the globe, never to forget this real event. But of course, this is not the view of most modern scholars. They prefer to believe that something in our commonly evolved psyche forces each culture to invent the same imaginary flood legend with no basis in real history. Instead of scholarship, this is willful ignorance of the facts. End quote. That is from ICR.org, the article titled, "Why Does Nearly Every Culture Have Tradition Global Flood?" So here's the conclusion of the whole matter, guys. Noah's Ark is completely feasible logically. It is completely feasible scientifically. It is consistent with every major civilization's history of their own culture. Dinosaurs were on the ark, and according to Job and human history, they were hunted. My opinion is to extinction, or they could not survive the new climate and the world changes after the flood. Now, here's something you all should check out. ArkEncounter.com in Williamston, Kentucky. It is a life-size museum replica to the dimensions the Bible describes. I've been there. It is awesome. And the science that they demonstrate there is mind-boggling. You've got to check it out. The Ark Encounter is amazing. And no, I don't get any referrals for sending you guys there. I don't know anybody that works there. But it's amazing. I hope you guys learned something from this. If you have any questions, please email me, angrypatriot42@yahoo.com. And please, if you find it in your heart to support me financially, go to Spotify, search for me, click the button that says support this podcast, and just give me a small donation every month to help support this podcast and keep me going. I greatly appreciate you listening, and I'll personally respond to your emails. And until next time, may God bless you all.